Hi, my name is Patrick Tran from the Learning and Teaching Group, University of New South Wales. In today's workshop, we're going to look at qualitative data analysis using NVIVO. We don't aim to cover every single functionalities of NVIVO in this workshop, but rather focusing on the foundational concepts and what needed for you to get started with qualitative data analysis. For this workshop, we have two parts. The first part, this presentation aims to give you an overview of qualitative research. We're going to discuss the steps involved in qualitative data analysis using NVIVO. We then look at how NVIVO can help with conducting a literature review and performing in-depth analysis, including queries and relationship discovery. Finally, the second part of this workshop is a quick demonstration to the user interface and the main functions of NVIVO. So first of all, what is qualitative research? In a nutshell, qualitative research mainly targets qualitative data, which is unstructured or semi-structured, including interviews, survey data with open-ended questions, web pages, and multimedia data. In contrast to quantitative research, qualitative research focuses on what you can observe but may not be able to quantify. And it also concerns with why and how something happened, as opposed to what, where, when, and who. You don't use statistical methods because qualitative research is very much interpretive. So it depends on your own skills and your own position. Generalization, discovery of patterns and trends over a large sample of population, is not the main objective in qualitative research. Instead, you would explore and look into in-depth details about a much smaller population. And finally, qualitative research assumes that in order to understand, for example, how someone thinks about a specific topic or elements of the world, you would have to understand the context that person is in. And it also depends on how you, as a human being, interpret the information being shared and search for meaning behind the different kinds of social phenomena. So in short, qualitative research is not an exact science. It is a flexible, dynamic, and subjective process. And how you analyze your data will depend very much on your own decisions, interpretations, your aims, and your research questions. As with any type of analysis, you will start with collecting, cleaning, and reducing data. You then need to get familiar with the data and finally organize it in a manageable way. And this is what we mean by coding, that is, reading and assigning labels to different data segments. These labels are often referred to as topics or codes. We then review and refine these codes, and hopefully we can make discovery of new knowledge. Now the big question is, how do we go about coding or extracting topics from the data? There are two approaches. If your goal is to develop new theories, inductive research or grounded theories might be what you need. So you start from scratch without any assumption of what topic to be found, and you are open to any topics or themes emerged from the data. On the other hand, if you're looking for ways to improve an existing program, you might have some prior knowledge of what is expected to emerge from the data. So deductive approach might be suitable, in which you start with some hypotheses, predefined frameworks, or existing performance indicators and use them to code your data. One of the most popular tools for qualitative data analysis is NVIVO. We can use it to identify main topics from the text, locate where these topics in various data sources, hopefully discover relationship between these topics, and query or asking questions of data. Surely, we've been doing qualitative research well before the creation of NVIVO. So what is the difference does NVIVO make? Well, it enables effective analysis of qualitative data. So let's unpack this. First of all, it allows us to analyze a wide range of data types and data sources, including not only text, but any media data like audio and video. The data can be collected with a survey or from web pages. You can use it as part of your research or of your everyday work and routine. Next, by analyzing the data, you can gain better understanding of it, conduct in-depth comparison, and discover new knowledge. Finally, it is the effective information retrieval that attracts many researchers to NVIVO. I don't know about you, but when I studied for my exams many years ago, I often use highlighters, sticky notes, or post-it notes like this to annotate my textbook. This is fine for one book, but imagine if you have 10 or hundreds of books. Annotation like this will not work. With NVIVO, you can code a large volume of data, not one but many books. Retrieving all data related to a topic from all of these books would be very easy and fast by just a click of a button. You can also compare contents between books, or even harder, between characters mentioned in each book. Which topics do they have in common? What is the amount of text or the number of mentions of each topic? Another problem that NVIVO can solve is that one text segment can be assigned to multiple topics. For example, we may have a tourist talking about his trip to Australia, so he could mention many things at the same time, say about tourism in general and culture in particular, and share his experience with a positive tone. So we could label what he shared with at least 3 topics: tourism, culture, and positive sentiment. And finally, say we analyze a lot of data, and after a few months not touching it, how quickly can we recall or review what we found from the data? You would have to go through all the sticky notes and the highlighted text segments in each book. Again, with NVIVO, you may simply review the code hierarchy, select the interested node, and bring up all the data labeled under this node very quickly. And if I'm writing a paper on cloud computing, for example, I could quickly retrieve all 10 different definitions of what cloud computing is. And I could then choose the most suitable definition, or I could combine some of the definitions into one and use it in my paper, which is very convenient. This is a typical workflow of qualitative data analysis using NVIVO. Let us consider 2 common use cases. The first one is literature review, in which we collect research articles, then we code them, meaning that we read the articles to gain some understanding of the field. At the end of the coding process, we would be able to summarize the key topics emerged from the data. We could stop the review here. However, you could go one step further to actually analyze the articles deeper by using queries, asking questions of the data, and memo or taking notes along the way. Such analysis is considered basic, as we're not making any new discoveries yet. Instead, this allows us to synthesize the topics or code that we found into larger themes and perform critical comparison between articles. The second use case of NVIVO is to analyze the qualitative data collected. It could either be text, images, videos, or audios. Any non-text media must be converted to text before coding. For example, we can summarize main ideas associated with a media file, or alternatively, we can transcribe audio and video. When all data is collected and prepared in a proper format, we can start coding and analyzing just like we did in the first use case. Furthermore, you can go beyond the basic analysis to a more advanced level, discovering relationship between the themes, building new theories and hypotheses. Now, in a real research, you don't just stop here. You will probably move on to the next 2 phases, applying what you found from the analysis phase and finally writing up your report or paper. At this stage, we have completed coding and analysis. What we ended up with is not just a list of codes emerged from the data, but also their frequencies, how many times a topic appears in a source or all the sources. Essentially, NVIVO helped us obtain a quantitative representation of the raw data. Now that we have the code, their frequencies, and perhaps some other quantitative data, we could make use all of these data to do further implementation and experimentation, including statistical analysis. For example, we could perform hypothesis testing or even predictive machine learning where appropriate. Too often, qualitative data analysis is equated with coding. As you can appreciate from this workflow, your research may go beyond that point to actually analyze the data, apply what you find to solve some problems, and write up your report. Now let's recap what we actually do in the first 2 steps of the workflow. We started with the collection of raw data. The coding process turned raw data into topics and evidence, meaning that we extracted the main ideas from the data, kept track of where and how many times these ideas occur in the text. We then conducted the analysis where we synthesized the topics or code into larger themes and discovered some new knowledge. It is important to note that codes or topics are different from themes. Themes are more generic and can be used to answer the research questions that you set at the beginning. Coding is a very important step that you need to do before analysis. It simply means labeling your data. Imagine we are coding this data source, a research article on data mining, as part of a literature review. We first read and understand the article, highlight certain text segment, and label it with a short phrase describing what the segment is about. This phrase or label is referred to as a code or a topic emerged from the data. Here you can see we have found a number of codes. Some text segments may be labeled with multiple codes. For example, this segment here talked about the gap between the academia and the business world at the macro level. Therefore, we label this segment with 2 codes. So we understand what a code is. Another important concept is case. Let's say after finished coding, we move on to the next step, analysis. We can refer to the data source by the file name in our analysis like this. However, it doesn't seem right. Yes, we coded this PDF file, but we don't say we analyze or compare PDF files. We analyze and compare publication, which is represented by the author name and the year of publication. So our unit of analysis or subject of analysis is publication, and we call this a case. In this example, each PDF document is a case or a publication. Let's consider another example in which you surveyed data mining practitioners. What are we analyzing here? We are analyzing what's shared by the survey participants. So participant is our case. In short, a case is a unit of analysis. It is what we are analyzing. A case can also have attributes. The reason we are defining cases in NVIVO is that we can compare them later. For example, what are the topics mentioned by publications that are published in 2020? Or what do survey participants in different age groups say about a certain topic? So how do we code in NVIVO? We first create an initial code structure if we have any prior knowledge of what topics might be found from the data. We do this by making a mind map and then convert it into code. Now we can open the data file, select a text segment, drag and drop it into one of these codes. If you drop the selected text to this empty space, a new code will be created. You can also right-click the selected text and code from the menu. That is manual coding. NVIVO also allows auto-coding. If your document is formatted, say heading 1 is reserved for the questions asked in the interview, then we can use autocode by heading 1. NVIVO will automatically extract all heading 1s as codes and then associate all the text under that heading to the right code. Here we have the code Q4 and all the text below it is coded under Q4. This can be a big time saver when it comes to coding structured interviews where you have a set of predefined questions that you want to ask all the participants. As mentioned before, we need to define our cases for analysis. For research articles, each PDF file is often a case, so we can simply right-click the document and choose Create as Cases. The entire text of the document will then be associated with the corresponding case. For interviews, you might have a document containing responses from multiple participants, so each document contains multiple cases. You can first create all the cases, then associate all responses by a person, say Maria, to the corresponding case Maria. So if your document is organized such that the participant's name is placed in a line just above his or her text, we can use autocode by speaker names. We can simply list all of the speaker names from the document, and NVIVO will automatically create cases based on these names and code the text accordingly. So Maria's text will be coded under Maria case and so on. Now that we understand coding and cases, let's put everything together. We started the NVIVO workflow with importing documents into the software. We then define and create cases. If it is an interview, a case is defined as a participant or a respondent. Anything said by a respondent will then be associated with that case. After that, we can start coding or labeling text segments with topics or codes. Next, we further analyze the data by querying or asking questions of the data, or visualize the topics found in a word cloud or code frequencies in a bar chart. With queries, you can see how much the codes overlap or intersect. For example, how many times people talked negatively about community change. Or you can compare cases by their attributes. In this example, we use crosstab to show the codes mentioned by participants by their age group and gender. What did people in their 30 to 39 and female groups talk about water quality? Here are some example queries you may want to ask of the data. I highlighted the codes and case attributes in the text to help you better understand what involves in each query. For example, the first query concerns about case attributes age group from 30 to 39 and the code water quality. You can use crosstab to construct this query as mentioned before. You can take your data analysis to a whole new level beyond coding and queries by looking for the underlying relationship between the codes. For example, this same text segment can be coded into 3 nodes. As you can see, industrial waste, water quality, and negative sentiment. From this, we can theorize that maybe industrial waste and water quality are related. In particular, we suspect that industrial waste impacts water quality. We can consider this new relationship just another code, which we need to prove with evidence. We can reread the data, look for and associate any relevant text to this new code. Let's explore how you might go about conducting a literature review. Here is a paper that I started writing a couple of weeks ago. I first defined the research questions that my paper seeks to answer. I then explain my research strategy, how the data will be searched or shortlisted for further analysis. After coding, I use the framework matrix functions in NVIVO to make a summary table in which rows representing publications and columns representing codes and topics extracted from the articles. This matrix table here is a good place for me to start writing my literature review. In conclusion, NVIVO can extract main themes from the qualitative data and discover new knowledge. We started the NVIVO workflow with importing raw data into the software. We then started coding and running queries to gain better understanding. We can conduct further analysis and data visualization just to identify any hidden relationship within the data. Finally, we can summarize our findings and write up the report. In the second part of the workshop, we will have a quick demonstration of NVIVO being used for literature review. Thanks for watching.